Yaakov, please subscribe to the station and give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. So here we go. We're in Ein Yaakov, Gemara Shabbos. And again, 33a3 for those who are in the Art Scrolls. So, Va'avon nivlo peh. So for the sin of speaking obscene language, which again is a strange terminology, even from them to say obscene language. Navlo peh is... I could just be making not so much of using the swear words, but just I think they said it better. Lascivious talk is probably better. So it said Sarot Rabot Zero Kashot Mitchachot. So calamities increase and harsh decrees originate against the Jews. And the young men of the enemies of Israel die. Who the enemies of Israel? So the article explains, following many times, I think probably Rashi even says this, the reference is actually to young Jewish men. The Gemara often uses the phrase the enemies of the Jews as euphemism when it describes calamitous events destined to befall the Jewish people. We did it, we started it, so it comes against us. Fine. Yitomo v'almanot, so I can be in an. So, and also, the orphans and widows cry out, but they are not answered. Why? He explains the extreme gravity assigned to the use of obscene language may on the surface seem puzzling. It becomes understandable, though, in light of the fact that man is distinguished from other creatures primarily by his capacity for speech. He alone forms verbal utterances into language, communicating ideas to others of his own kind. If he degrades this capacity, then he degrades the essence of his humanity. Think of the power of speech. Okay? We can create with our speech, we can destroy with our speech, we can defile with our speech. So it's all a matter of that. Shneimar, as it says, Al Kain al B'charav lo yismach Hashem. Therefore, over his youth, Hashem will not rejoice. And furthermore, on his orphans and widows, he shall not have mercy. So we're seeing that the punishment. Let me finish the pasuk. Kikulo chanef umera. For all of them are hypocrites and evildoers. V'chol peh dover nevala. And every mouth speaks obscene language. V'chol zot lo shava po. Yet, despite all this, his anger has not turned away. V'od yado netuya, and his hand is still outstretched, that's come from Isaiah. He says the words over his youth, Hashem will not rejoice, refers to the death of young men, and Rashi adds to the origin of harsh decrees. In addition, the verse also refers to the hardships of orphans and widows. The next part of the verse implies that the widespread use of obscene language is one of the reasons these calamities will ensue. And so it was, again, we're seeing that, let's understand how this works though. The verse said that because of these things, Hashem will not rejoice over the youth, and that the orphans and widows will not have mercy. So what the rabbis did was they went to the source of that verse, namely v'chol peh dover nevala, that every mouth speaks obscene language, and then he said, for that reason, that's why, in other words, for that sin, Hashem will do these things. So it's not that the rabbis are just coming up with these, but they have proof text for what they're saying. And then, but the last part of the verse is very important. He says, "V'chol zot lo shava po v'od yadon netuya." Well, yet despite all this, his anger is not turned away, and yet his hand is still outstretched. What does that mean? That we still have a chance to do teshuvah. We still have a chance to return to Hashem, and all we have to do is stop speaking the way we are, control our mouths, and control our thoughts that way. And if we stop that, then all of these things will go away. It's a very simple procedure, really.
In the Ten Commandments, it's talking about specifically using the name of God in vain. This does not say that. It's just lascivious open.
Correct.
Whether it's against God, whether it's against fellow man. Why is that not original or the business of using the name of God in vain? That's not referred to here.
Right, because that is a different type of thing. When I'm speaking of God's name in vain, it means that we discussed this before. When I'm saying about this wooden table, that I swear by the name of God that this table is stone. but you see it's not stone. You see it's wood. I've used God's name in vain. For that, that's an unforgivable, that's a death warranted statement. As compared to here, where I'm speaking in a lascivious manner, that's not a death penalty per se. I can do tshuva for that. So I just have to change. So I'm saying if you're going to degrade yourself by speaking like that, so then there's consequences to that. That's all. But remember, we always have to remember that the 10 Commandments are really the major topics of the. In other words, I can put all the 613 into 10 categories. Right. So there's really 613. So this would be one of them. But nonetheless, we have to just put everything into place. So that would be the major difference between using the name in vain. That's when I swear. When I swear for foolishness, I mean it's not true. So that's whether we mean beshav in vain. Okay, but this is different. This is on a like I said, I'm using language. It could be that I'm just using double entendre language. By the way, a lot of your comedies will use that sort of language, and that is obscene language. It doesn't have to go to the words that we all know as swears. It could be something that is seemingly parv language, if you will, but certainly can be taken the other way. And that's what you should not be doing. You should not be using language that way.
Like some kind of insulting language against somebody, or you're ridiculing somebody.
It could be something like that. It could be those double entendres that we all love to use, and they mean totally different things. The craziest one I heard was you say to a girl, "Oh, you're fat," and she smiles. Why? Because fat, they spell P-H-A-T.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Rashi Tevot, which is the acrostic for pretty hot and something.
It stands for something.
Yeah, it's acrostic for hot and tempting or something. So the girl who now thinks of herself as a piece of meat is very flattered by that.
I've heard something like.
Oh, by the way, another one in Spanish. What do you hear? I don't know Spanish, but the word? It sounds like mira, mida, something like that. Where the and something like that, and the girl said, "Oh yeah." Okay. But it's disgusting. It's a cat call. Yeah. It's a cat call. Yeah. So you should not be doing cat calls or anything like that.
I've heard if you want to show respect for someone, it's a joke.
Pretty hot and tempting. That's what it was. Pretty hot and tempting.
Right. Oh. You can say something like, "You don't sweat much for a fat girl." That's not so good. No, but when you say fat and she smiles because she understands it as pretty hot and tempting. And I was amazed when I saw that. I was like, "What are you talking about? Fat?" And then they said to me, I said, "Well, you guys." It wasn't that way when I was young. So you said fat, you mean fat. Yeah. Okay. So now it says my ode Yanatoya. Okay, what's the implication of and his hand is still stretched? So Amar Rav Yochanan bar Rabba, he said it means I call Yodim Kala Lama Nichnas Chuppah. Everyone knows why a bride enters the chuppah to become married. Ella call of an abil biv, but if anyone perverts the speech and actually expresses this. So afilu chotmin alav gazar din shal shivim shana tova hofchan alav alav. Then even if the heavenly court has sealed a favorable decree of 70 years for him, they will reverse it and put it in the place of evil. So here, Rav Chanan bar Rabba is taking this verse and turning it around, right? Because, like I said, you could take that verse as, "Yet despite all this, his anger is not turned away," and still his hand is outstretched. What is it outstretched for? So Rav Chanan bar Rabba wants to say it's outstretched in order to God's going to punish this person. So even if he was good, and why does a woman go to the chuppah, by the way? What's pshat? He's speaking quoting or explicitly about the intimate relationship in which the bride will enter, right? You're getting married for one simple thing. You're going to get out of that marriage, namely relations.
You weren't doing it before, and these days they weren't. It wasn't premarital sex, so you would after the wedding you'd have relations. So the guy says, "Oh, it's going to be a hot time in the old town tonight, right?" Okay, that's incorrect. You shouldn't say that. And if you do that, so even if there's a decree, even if you had all these wonderful things, and God said, "I'm going to give you a good favor for the next 7 years," you said that, you ruined it. You ruined it. Now I'm going to turn it on you. That's how Rav Chanan Bar Rava understands that. Okay. Amar Rava Bar Shila Amar Rav Chisda Kol V'Navi Alapiv. Anyone who perverts his speech with the same language, Ma'amikim Lo Gehenim. The chasm of Gehenim is deepened for him. Shnei Amar says, Shucha Amuka Pizarot. A deep pit is for the mouth that speaks aberrantly. Rav Nachman Bar Yisrael Amar. He said, "Shomeh v'shotek," such a punishment to suffer, but even by one who listens to obscene speech and remains silent. Now, if somebody else said it to you, it's going to be a hot time, old time tonight, and you didn't say, "No, you don't say that. Disgusting. You're a pig."
Did you actually protest against it, or just walk away? I mean, is walking away as good as protesting?
It's an interesting question.
No, it takes away the audience, but it doesn't change his mind. It doesn't indicate why you walked away.
Right. It's an interesting question. If you show disgust, you say,
oh, and then okay.
Then you walk away.
So
that would show my
you've
disapproval.
made a nonverbal comment.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I just walk away, I feel the bathroom
You
sort
turn
of
around
thing.
and leave. Then
Right.
you're
So
not-
Although unless the guy says, "What? I insulted you?
Ah.
I'm through. Thank you. Have a good day."
My mother once hung up on a phone conversation from a friend of hers because she made some comment about some other friend. She says, "I don't have to listen to that. Goodbye."
Is it?
And she called her back later she called my mother back later to
Right.
apologize for having said it.
So minimally by inferment, they should infer by your action of leaving. They should know why you left.
Correct. Otherwise, you are implicitly saying what they said is fine.
Yeah.
So
If
you don't want to
say
get-
anything at all. If you don't do
It's
anything.
like abstaining instead of voting no. It's like taking yourself out of the conversation
Right,
rather
right.
than adding to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Shneimar, it says, "Omar Hashem Yipal Sham." He that is abhorred by Hashem shall fall there. So we're seeing that you should really speak up. So he says, and he brings down that the Gemara arrives at this by relating that the word va'od still is similar to the word va'ad forever. Thus the verse reads, God's hand is outstretched against one who speaks obscenely forever. Okay? That is for the rest of his life. Fine. That's why he turns, even in 7 years, being good will be turned to bad. And then also when it comes to what we're just talking about, the verse implies that another nearby person, he that is told by Hashem, shall also fall into the pit. So the Gemara understands this as alluding to one who sits passively nearby and listens to another obscene speech. So again, what you don't have to do is, let's say I'm sitting in an airport and I hear somebody speaking like that. I don't have to start a fight. He's not talking to me. He's talking to his friend. I need not get involved in that fight or discussion. I can simply walk away and I don't have to get involved. Okay, but if I'm sitting there and he's talking to me or on one of the chevra that he's speaking to, so then I have to either imply that this is unacceptable speech. It happened one time here, actually. Somebody was saying something, and I said, "Lashon hara, I'm out of here. Once that, I'm through." No, that's it. Bye, have a good day. And that was it. And I wasn't interested. Just wasn't interested. I made my macha as right, and I don't know if they continued or not. Again, it wasn't my. But I put up my sting for it. How are you? I put up my sting for it. But that's what you're supposed to do. Okay. Kol Marek Atzmo Le'Avera. So now Rav Yeshua says anyone who purchases his schedule of other duties so as to make time for sin, so Achaborot Ufsain Yodsimbo shall find welts and wounds breaking over his body. You got that one? Wow. Okay. Shenamaz, it says Chaburo Petza Tamruk Bira, that injuries and wounds accompany one who purges himself for evil.
V'lo'od ela shenidon b'hadrokan. But not only that, but he's going to be punished with hadrokan, which is a sickness whose prominent symptom is a swelling of the stomach. Rashi elsewhere occurs with this. Mosaf Aruch identifies this as hydropicus, which is dropsy, a disease characterized by swelling of the tissue throughout the body as well as swelling in various bodily cavities. The term avera, when undefined, is always used by the Gemara to refer to sexual immorality. Okay, Shnei as it says, Umakol chadre vaten, and ailments of the inner parts of the stomach. So this is taken as a reference to the hydrokin, an ailment that affects the stomach. Okay, so you have, there's also an interesting where he says that if you are purge the schedule of other duties so to make time for the sin. In other words, you had to do other things. And what you do is you decide, no, I want to free myself up. So you take because I want to, I mean, it's sad, but I'm laughing, but it's sad. What does he say here? He turns his heart, right? So that's why he's turning from all these things. And he wants to do averas, so he frees his schedule up. Okay? So you're going to get a skin disease. Again, what we're learning from this is a very important principle, that, our physical ailments are really, they're just a physical manifestation of what our spiritual ailments are. And if we would think about what we're doing, and we would do teshuvah for that, so that itself would be what heals us up, because Hashem is only wounding us so that we should do teshuvah. That's all it is. So now, I know that I sound like a Christian Scientist when I say this, so let's understand
No,
this.
you don't.
No, clearly I do, because that's what they would say. You don't go to doctors.
Well, where do they get it from? Don't they get it from the same source
Yes.
we do?
Well, I can't answer that because I don't know how they operate.
Yeah.
But there's certainly the truth of it comes from us. So I'll say it like that. But what's going on is that we need to understand that when we take an aspirin or whatever we're going to take, somebody has a headache, somebody has a pain, whatever. So what they do, they throw an aspirin down their gullet and they say, okay, fine, then they go back to work.
But without changing their behavior.
Without changing behavior. Now, Baruch Hashem for medicine, because normally it works. Your headache normally will go away. If you have a migraine, you have a bigger problem, but it's a normal headache will go away. But what you really should be doing is, before you take the aspirin or before you take the drug, whatever you're going to take, you should say, Hashem, I know that it's only from you that I have this headache. I'm taking this pill only because I am too weak to do anything else. So please let this pill be, along with my teshuvah, be acceptable to you and be a remedy for this and help me to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Really, that's what you should do before taking any medicine or before you're doing anything like that. But, of course, we don't think like that. We think, this medicine may be the Tylenol or the ibuprofen or some other heavier drug. There's flu shots. They're all going to do it. They are all worthless. As a matter of fact, most people, you said you took a flu shot last year and you got the flu.
Yeah.
Okay. So
It worked then, huh?
they work, they get you the flu. Now, what happens is, I'm not going to be against inoculations, I'm not against any of these things, as long as you can get what you need. But at the same time, we have to understand that any malady we get is because of our transgressions against God. And when we start to forget that and think that this is the magic of the drug, and that's the doctors know all, then we're barking up the wrong tree.
I was at my doctor before I came here, and my triglycerides were up slightly. I said, does that come from eating too much fat or too much sugar? Sugar and bread. But he didn't send me back to my rabbi to do teshuvah,
See, what you really have to do is figure out what cholesterol, what is clogging. That's what they want to argue, a clogging, right? It could potentially, by the way, it's only a correlation, but it potentially could clog up, it shrinks up the arteries. So the blood has a hard time getting through, right? So now what you could do is you could say, okay, so Hashem is showing me that I'm slightly over and it's slightly clogging. So how am I clogged up to Hashem?
How do I plunge my spiritual? What's my spiritual plunge, as it were? What do I need to do for that? And then you do the exercise and you do everything else you're supposed to do. I'm not going to argue that if I eat like a pig and everything else and I have all the sugars in the world, my tries are going to go down. But you never know. We haven't had that experiment. But that would be the direction you go. No, no rabbi is going to say, oh, no, don't listen to the rabbi. No, we're better than the doctors. Well, nobody's saying that. What we're saying is there is a spiritual component here, majority is spiritual, and Hashem is throwing something into us to say, okay, this is what you're doing. I've pre-warned you. This is going to happen. So now you can either listen. You can take some drugs and make yourself feel a little better, but guess what? It's going to come back when the drug wears off. So it's up to you. So, for that, I say, rather do your tshuva and then also, like I said, take the drug, but it'll stop the symptom for the second, but you really want to stop it full term. You don't want to...
Cause, not just symptom.
Right. You want to get the cause. Okay. So, Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he said, Simona Avera Adrokan. An indicator of a transgression is the presence of hydrokin. Okay. Tana Rabban. So the rabbis under Braita Shlosh Mini Hydrokin, there are three types of hydrokin. Shalavera Ava, one hydrokin comes because the sin is characterized by skin, that comes of a sin is characterized by skin that becomes thick. He said the skin itself swells, comes thick and hard. Shal Ra'av Tafuach, hydrokin that comes of hunger, is characterized by swelling. It says the swelling occurs because the muscle tissue and the skin and a buildup of fluid is evidence beneath the skin. And finally, shal kashafim dak. And hydrokin brought about by sorcery is characterized by thin skin. The skin becomes thin and weak. So now we get into a whole bunch of witchcraft. Great. I love witchcraft. Okay. Witchcraft, sorcery, it could be a real thing. It may not be. I'm not going to argue one way or another. But if you listen to the witches today, what they call themselves Wiccans, they will tell you that if they get together and they concentrate on a particular person or group, they can either make that person good or sick, because it's the power of the group. Well, okay, fine. That's what Wiccans would say. How do I know? Because I've spoken with witches, so I always have a varied life here. I got to speak with witches, so they told me that. Okay, and but really, what's going on here is there are forces in the world that we don't know about. That's really where the rabbis are coming from. There are forces, spiritual forces, which we do not know about, which, if used improperly, can cause problems. That is the whole world of Kabbalah that we have out there. Okay, and as a matter of fact, we have a Gemara out there called the Avodah Zarah, and it tells us that we have to know what all these different types of worship are, so that we know what to stay away from, and we know when we have to kill the person who's doing it. So we all have to know it. I don't think anybody knows it today, but who knows? Maybe people do. But that's really what it is. So there are powers out there that you can be used for good or for bad. If you know how to use them, we stay away from them. Rambam would, as a rationalist, would probably say they don't exist anymore. If they ever existed, it was just a way of tricking people. That would be the rationalist argument. Nonetheless, I'm not going to get in between the Rambam and the Ramban, who would disagree with him on these things. So I'll leave that to the big guys to argue out whether or not we have witchcraft or sorcery today, or we don't. Most stuff that you see today is garbage. Most, 99% is going to be garbage, and it's not going to mean anything. It's just how much power you want to give it. Like if you read the horoscope in the paper. If you believe in a horoscope, well, I'm sorry. Okay, you've given into foolishness. If you go to a fortune teller, for the most part, I would say again, 99.999% are fools, and they're just making actually not fools. They're taking your money.
What if one's horoscope is Today is an excellent day to study Talmud.
Follow it. Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of selective. Yeah.
Right, selective. If anybody comes up with the right thing, is in tight. I remember one time, I always like this story, when I was pre-bar mitzvah, I was going to have a bar mitzvah in about, I don't know, I think it was May, so probably 4 weeks from then. And we're at a carnival. The youth group took us to, it was a USY group, they took us to a carnival. Well, there was a fortune teller at the carnival. Okay. So I knew that was a joke, but I said, why not? For 25 cents, give me my future. So she said,
look at your hand.
look at my hand. She read my hand. And she said, oh, you have a long lifeline. You're going to get married. She goes, okay. All the normal stuff. And she said, you're going to come into money. And she said, in June. And she gave a date. She said, June 21st. Okay. So I want to tell her, honey, you were so close.
Yeah.
It's really June 23rd.
But you mean your bar mitzvah?
Bar mitzvah.
Yeah, so that's what
I knew I was coming to bar mitzvahs. I knew I was getting money, but I really want to say, you're so close. Mom, you're so close. I don't know how you did it. It's a good day.
She could have gotten this quizzical look on her face and says, you're going to get a bunch of fountain pens.
But that was the closest I've ever had to a person actually giving something of substance.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know why she picked that date. I can't tell you. And I couldn't hear the rest of what she was saying. I just remember that.
She said June the 21st.
And I got June 23rd. She was up by 2 days.
What day was your actual Jewish birthday?
No, that was the 23rd.
The 23rd,
Where
okay.
you live, well, my father was from Brooklyn, New York, where they had bar mitzvahs Monday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Was yours on a Monday, or did they have that where you were from? Or
No,
just-
we only had Shabbos. We only had Shabbos, but my birthday actually was Shabbos.
Yeah.
It actually was Shabbos. I actually was bar mitzvah, my bar mitzvah. Have you heard bar mitzvah, my bar mitzvah? Yeah. I was one of the unique guys for that. Most of the people, they didn't even know when their bar mitzvah was.
Yeah, yeah.
I went to the rabbi when my brother was bar mitzvah, became a bar mitzvah. And I said to him, well, when's mine? He said, when were you born? So I gave my English date. So that's when that's the first time I heard of my Hebrew date. And it was also, I mean, I knew about the Hebrew calendar, but that's the first time I thought of myself as a different date than what my English birthday would be. And so when I heard that, I said, oh, that's interesting. That year, my English birthday was on a Sunday. My Hebrew birthday was on the Shabbos. Notice I had a week-long birthday, as it were. It was very interesting.
My Haftorah was Vayera. Does that mean that it doesn't?
You're in, so that means you were born in, around now, actually.
Well,
you should be next month.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so that does trace back all the way to birth when you're born.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Your birthday never changes. In other words, whatever your English birthday is, the year so we would go back to the year and the day of your birthday, that is your Hebrew birthday. That always will be your Hebrew birthday. And the Hebrew date never changes. Just like your English date never changes.
Yeah.
So, but when it happens, because of our calendar, we have to add a month. Right now we added a month. This year we're adding a month. So that pushes our Hebrew birthday either forward or back, well, this year forward, from where it would be. And it could differ by as much as a month from where we were. But it normally doesn't, but it could. So it's unlike the English, where I just know that if last year was on Monday, so next year is on Tuesday, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Except in a leap year, it's going to jump 2 days.
Yeah.
But here, my birthday can go all over the place. And it's like any of our holidays. That's why people say, "Oh, Hanukkah is early." I say, "No, it's right on time. It's right on time. Never changes.
Compared to what? Yeah.
Yeah, never changes. What's it say?
Early compared to what? Yeah.
All right. Okay. Oh, we're really over time. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop here.